Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you today through the screen, wherever you are. And we've got Tom Fry and Andy Luddington with myself and Beth this morning. Great guys. We really respect their opinion and their walks with Jesus. So it's great to have them on here to chat about what we're looking at this week. Last week, we were looking at developing a rule of life. We're looking at this series by John Mark Comer called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, Ruthlessly Eliminating Hurry from Our Lives. And last week we were looking at, those structures that we can put in place to kind of be supports and to live emotionally healthy and spiritually rich lives. That's what we were looking at. But today we're moving on to a new topic. And I think Beth is just going to talk us through that.
This week we're looking at Digital Asceticism, however you say it. And earlier Jared read to us that amazing passage in Psalm 16 that says, "In you I take refuge. Apart from you I have no good thing." So this podcast in the series was looking about our need to take refuge and find rest in Jesus, and that need being greater than ever. But actually there is so much trying to steal our attention, and how can we as church be countercultural rather than being consumed by the distractions? How can we be a people found in Jesus, absorbed in worship of him, giving him our attention and affection? And how do we love him well and make space in our lives for him to love us and to find refuge in him? So I'm going to go straight in with some questions. Tom, what stood out for you this week in the podcast?
I think, to be honest, it didn't take long for something to strike home pretty hard. And I think it was the quote, our attention is sold. And personally, I really didn't like that, because the thought of something, I know I'm the one going on my phone, I'm the one going on my laptop, I'm the one watching TV, but the thought of something that belongs to me, attention sometimes associated with time, is being taken away from me without my constant consent, I really didn't like. And kind of following on from that, he said how without sustained attention there is no spiritual life. And I think it was just at that moment I'd picked up my phone to check a notification, and that, I think, kind of says it all, really, how it's so easy to get distracted. When I set aside this hour of time just to kind of really focus on this talk that we're going to be talking about and sharing our thoughts on how distraction can be such a threat to our spiritual life. I think he was going on about how the goldfish 9-second attention span, and now the average American has 8 seconds attention span. And I think I didn't help myself then going on to start a tally of every time I got distracted, which I think in its sense was just worse again. But I think distraction being a threat to spiritual growth in life, I think he kept saying that, and that really spoke out to me. And how even though we're all dealing with it, kind of the way he even took that anecdote about Julia Stiles and going down that really big rabbit hole of what celebrities have a 9-to-5 job right now. It's kind of, as big as it is a distraction, actually knowing that everyone is dealing with it. Just look to one area of your life, and I'm sure you might be able to pick out something or another. Actually, we're all in this, and we're all getting distracted. So it's something we absolutely need to just kind of talk about and share our experiences with, and how we can help each other with that, really.
Brill. Thanks, Tom. Andy, what about you? What stood out to you this week?
Yeah, I was shocked by and could also relate with the social validation feedback loop they spoke about. The specialist algorithms that are written into social media to make us post and repost and even buy and pay for likes. And that the digital world has been designed to consume as much of our time and, as Tom says, our conscious attention as possible. And it's exploring a vulnerability in human psychology. It's engineered, it's designed to be attractive, and it's designed to be addictive. And I felt very uncomfortable, just as Tom said, by my phone. It doesn't work for me. It actually works for the company who's made it. Even though I've paid for that phone or that mobile device, I'm still not the customer. I'm the product. I am the product. What is being sold is my time and my attention. Completely shocked and surprised by the amount of time, people pick up their phone, over 2,500 times a day was an average. I mean, that's potentially more than people are taking steps during the lockdown at the moment. Really frightening. And I thought the point he made about tech giant leaders, that they're paying significant sums of money for their children to go to tech-free schools. Wow. I mean, if they're doing that, then you've got to stop and ask the question about, what are we doing here, and what are the impacts of the digital world in our lives?
Yeah. Brill, thanks. And Jamie, what stood out to you?
Well, I was really drawn by the statement that we are losing out on in terms of our attention span to goldfish. That actually the human attention span now is going to be measured at 8 seconds and a goldfish is at 9.
Yeah.
And kind of thinking, I can kind of actually see that, in my own life, and thinking, how is that going to affect my prayer life? If my attention span is 8 seconds, I believe prayer is a two-way conversation, but is that affecting my prayer life? Is God saying things, but I've lost attention and I'm missing it? And just that kind of, when he said attention is the precursor to adoration, what are we giving our attention to? And that's going to kind of lead to what we give our adoration. In other words, what we worship, really.
Yeah.
That was a real kind of, challenge for me.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely been a challenge this week. But specifically, I wanted to ask, how has God challenged you, and maybe the way you're doing things at the moment? Andy, do you want to go first? Some specific challenges?
Yeah, I feel that God has challenged me with regards to the threat to my emotional health and well-being, and my spiritual life. And I've had this question from the podcast: am I giving time to the digital world, or is the time being stolen from me? And if it is being stolen, then this means less time with my family and with Jesus. So from this week, I've felt challenged to just to stop and to look at the potential impacts the digital world has, and how it could affect or distract us from God and His best in our lives. Yeah. As a society, we are so accepting of the latest new thing, and we need to step back instead of consuming without thought. Mobile devices, social media, it can so easily sabotage all of our best intentions without us being aware. And we need to pay attention and be disciplined to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Tom, what about you? What specifically challenged you?
I think it started with when John Mark Comer said that I think he was referring to early monks, how they refer to themselves as like God's athletes. I think it was early monks he was referring to. I really like that because, he kind of, I liked it at first until he started describing why they were God's athletes. Because I thought, initially when he said God's athlete, I was like, some people use the term as well, like your body is a temple. And I really like that. And I kind of try and live by that as much as I can, specifically in the way I eat and stay active. But then he went on to kind of see how God's athlete applied to these early monks, and how I just got spiritual discipline of prayer, fasting, and solitude, and their ability to exercise their spiritual discipline. And actually, I kind of then reflected that on my life and where my priorities lie. And so last week, and it's still going, I decided to try a vegan diet because, as I said, I like to take my exercise and eating quite seriously. And actually, that obviously at the moment is to the point of me changing my diet, actually, struggling with like headaches and, meat cravings, dairy cravings. But I'm willing to do that in pursuit of like a healthier body. And how often do I then flip that in the spiritual side of my life and say, okay, I'm gonna fast, or I'm gonna do a prayer evening, a prayer night, or like how often do I kind of make that relation and do it in my spiritual life? And I think that really challenged me and where my priorities really do lie.
Yeah.
Beth, is there anything in particular for you that challenged you this week and how you're living at the moment?
Yeah, quite a lot, to be honest. No, I think it's similar to what Jamie was saying earlier, that thing of how very few of us have the power of sustained attention. And I definitely I've got the worst attention span ever. Like I'll start doing something, then I need to move on to the next thing. And I like to be on the go, on the move all the time. But how he said it's detrimental to our spiritual health without having the power of sustained attention. And I just think, actually, like Jamie was saying, I felt really challenged. Like, do you set aside, like, I can spend like half an hour just having a flick through like my phone, but have I set aside an hour, like half an hour a day to just sit and be with God and place my attention on him? So I think specifically my challenge was, all right, Beth, make that time, set that aside set aside that time to just be with God and put your attention and adoration onto him each day.
Yeah. And so I guess kind of almost in the same vein, Tom, we'll start with you. Do you think there's any or is there any, well, you've just talked about doing a vegan week, which I guess links into this. Do you think there's any practical things that maybe you're going to take away from what you heard this week, or that other people could be putting in place?
I think one that I'm definitely taking away, and I think other people could probably have a go at, is was mentioned parenting your phone. Kind of, as we're in this time of social distancing, I'm very much being challenged to technologically distance myself, not having my phone in the pocket all the time, leaving it not in my room, but in another place in the house, where I'm not constantly checking it all the time. And we keep on, I feel we're going on about this time being a time of rest. And actually, personally, I think I need to learn to rest. So kind of ensuring that my room, the place that I sleep, is a place of rest. So I'm going to try, starting with this week and hopefully going forward, kind of removing all technology from my room and purely using that as a place of rest. And because there's so much that goes into like the psychology of having technology in the place that you sleep. I think probably anyone could say, if you're ever on your phone right before you sleep, as soon as you put your phone down and put your head in the pillow, you still feel wired and so awake. There's so much that actually goes to say towards those ways you kind of use technology and when you use it. So I'm going to be technologically distancing myself.
Like that. Social distancing, technological distancing.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Andy, what about you? What challenge are you gonna, like, practical thing are you gonna put in place, or what could others perhaps put in place?
Yeah, I've got a few. I think we need to have a digital Sabbath where we have a day a week where it's just device free. A lot of people now have like smart watches and they're great, but you're hardwired into every notification, every call, every message, every news update. It buzzes, and I'm constantly plugged into my phone. So the take-home message there is to really manage your notifications, and only to have notifications that are really essential or important at that time. I think putting mobile devices away at the end of a working day, just actually putting them away in a drawer is really good, just to remove that temptation. I certainly don't think we should have like phones at the dinner table or in the bedroom. I think there should be boundaries to where our mobile devices go. But looking at it from a family point of view and trying to bring up my girls, I don't want to be like other parents, unfortunately, where I'm sat on my phone when they're doing their swimming lesson, or they're having a play at school, or they're doing sports day. I want to be present. I need to stand out from the rest of the crowd. So don't take your phone, or just make sure it's put away. Certainly don't want to spend large periods of time on your mobile devices in front of your children, because I think that's just reinforcing that it's okay. And just buy a paperback book. Limit your time on mobile devices and just do something that's productive, and something that's maybe more tangible. would be my take home messages. Yeah.
Brilliant. Jamie, what about you? Any practicals?
Yeah, I think for me, the kind of putting your phone to bed thing, that was definitely, I felt, really kind of resonated with me. And just I saw somewhere in some other teaching just that, like in terms of our kind of patterns of thinking, what we look at last thing at night and what we look at first thing in the morning is really really shapes how we think. And so I've just been challenged, actually, do I want the first thing that I see in the morning to be my phone, and whatever notification is there, that's the first thing I'm going to see?
Yeah.
And again, that's kind of a bit like we've talked about. I'm not then in control of what's going to be that thing that is the starting point of my day. So I think for me, just making sure that phones are not what I see first, and that just it doesn't come in before. I like to spend my time with God in the morning first thing, and that it doesn't get in the way of that, and that it's not what I see before that. I also know that there's I was chatting with Mike, our vicar, about this app called the Freedom app the other day, and there's this app called the Freedom app, and it's kind of a little bit like what maybe iPhone users will know as like app limiters and stuff, but it goes really in depth. And so that could be a really good thing for people to apply if they wanted to. But I think one of the things that I've really been kind of challenged on is actually that that Jesus remains the goal of all of this. That actually the goal of using our phones less or putting them away is to be closer and more like Jesus, and that's going to bless our families, who we live with, our housemates, or whatever it is. That's gonna have ripple effects, and that's what I've kind of been really challenged by, just to keep the pursuit of becoming like Jesus the priority in all of this.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I think, like Jamie said, just to summarize, really, like this, really all of this is a means to an end, and the end goal is to look more like Jesus. And I just find it amazing that we have a God, like when we read that Psalm 16, who we can take refuge in, who we can rest in, and who just longs for our attention and our affection. Like what a privilege and what an amazing truth that is. But how often do we give our attention away to other such meaningless things? So I guess for all of us, like, this whole thing is just a chance for us to really practically say, how can I give God my attention and my affection? How can I make space to have rest and refuge in him? Because he says, apart from me, apart from you, we have no good thing. Apart from him, we can do nothing. So what a joy it is to be able to make space for him in our lives. And I guess my prayer for all of us in this is that we'll be a people so in love with Jesus that actually we want to create space for him, that this doesn't become something we really feel a strict need to do, but that it's just a joy to make space for him in our lives, that we make space to allow him to transform us into his likeness, and that we do only what we see the Father doing. We hear and we say what we hear the Father saying, and that we allow God to transform us. John Mark said about us becoming more like him, being transformed from glory to glory.
And I think I had, it comes to my mind that the other day I went for a walk and I was praying, and I was kind of praying about this whole season and kind of asking the Lord like what it is he was doing. And one of the things that I really felt God saying was to focus on the realities of his kingdom and not the troubles of this world. And I think that actually we're in a season where it's so easy to focus on the troubles of this world, and actually when we're talking about phones and devices, they can be basically put in front of us, can't they? But I want to encourage us just to be people that really focus on actually what are the realities of God's kingdom, what are the things that he's saying, and actually we have an unshakable God, an unshakable faith, and that's kind of an encouragement I wanted to bring.
Bro. Well, we're going to leave the discussion there, guys, but do keep having these conversations in your homes, in your families, with your life groups. we're going to have a chance now to give our attention and adoration to Jesus in some worship. But I'm going to ask Andy just to wrap up with some prayer now.
Yeah, Lord, I want to thank you for this recent series, and for the opportunity just to stop and to look into this whole evolving world of digital technology, Lord. Lord, I just pray and ask that you will just continue to bless us through this series, and Lord, that you will help us both individually and as families to stop and to review how we are managing our devices in our house, and whether, Lord, that we have them in a place that isn't helpful in our spiritual journey with you, Lord. And will you just give us the wisdom and the energy and the strength, Lord, to be able to put them to one side where they're getting in the way, so that we can be closer to you, Lord. We love you. We want to hear from you, Lord. And we want your best in our lives. Thank you, Lord, for your love and for your grace. And we lift this whole digital world up to you, Lord. And we thank you for it. But we also ask, Lord, that you will help us to be able to see through it. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.